just as well as using the EQ on each one of the separate tracks that we have. Using an EQ on buses, so on any of these groups, would basically never be as drastic in a sense of punching out something that's wrong, like removing frequencies in that much of a percentage as I would do on a single track. And why is that? Because it would sound weird. We would have so many elements like this going into one track, and if I remove something from there, let's say like this, it would be such a significant difference because so many elements are now being punctured right here and they're missing that frequency. So I'm going to play that and bypass this filter right here, filter number 5, that's doing that change. So just so you can see how it sounds in the context of the whole track. So as you can see, it doesn't really matter where I place this dot, where I'm taking out, where I place this filter point, but it's too much of a change to affect so many of the elements at once. Now I'm not saying it's never going to happen. There are no rules here to break, but that's something I would probably, if I had a need for something like that, it would mean that one of these sounds inside of the group is actually making a problem in that frequency. I would find it, identify it, and treat only that one sound, just the way you saw, like this. So treat that one sound so it wouldn't introduce that problematic frequency. And if I did my job right and I already treated all the sounds with reductive EQ, removing the frequencies I don't want to hear, this would never be the case. So having to do that would never happen. Now what would happen maybe is maybe balancing out with levels all of these groups that we have right here, or just slightly processing with the EQ each one of these groups, making sure that it sits, you see that it sits well with everything else. So once I've done everything with the leads, I just wanted a touch bit, well, that's not a touch, that's actually 5 dBs more at 3K on the leads. Actually, I felt like it was missing, and probably it was. I was missing a lot of the middle range frequency right there out of all of these leads. Maybe it was just some of them that missed that, like maybe this lead. So maybe I could apply that change to the lead that actually might be missing it and not do this on top of everything, because this doesn't have so many elements that happen so often like this lead does, and maybe this vocal. Everything else is quite intermediary. It just happens sometimes, really accidental. So I might even try to avoid doing this by checking why I did that in the first place. Most probably I wasn't thinking, I was just thinking, okay, let me make these sit well as much as I can using the groups, since I've already done all the processing and all the EQ that I could on the tracks. So kind of a really mild curve on the EQ when concerning groups, and especially groups like this, like drums, which have a lot of elements inside, would be quite nice. Now, there is no rules, as I said, there are no rules here to break. If a group you have, a bus you have, is consisted of all similar elements, that does not mean that you cannot do anything drastic with the EQ on them. The way I group my songs is usually like this. I usually end up with 5 or maybe 6 groups at a maximum, having some low frequencies. Sometimes the kick drum would be with the drums in the group, since I want to do some dynamic processing and I need the kick drum to actually be there, so it would trigger the dynamic processor that is on the group. But when it comes to EQing, I try to be mild and I try to use the EQ on the buses just as an overall, macro control of each one of these groups lying on top of everything else, and that just serves me to, get the final little touch of that macro relation between them happening, and just to get all of them to really sit even better. Now, as you see, it's one thing when you're dealing with a single element in all of these drums, but once you look at all of these drums as a unified element, then you might want to apply some processing like this EQ, where you just want a tiny change for all of those together in cohesion to become, let's say, a tiny bit louder in these bands of frequencies around 2K, something like that. So that's just a tiny change to make the macro of all of these groups sit well together.